The Tennessee Titans could select Cam Ward #1 overall. And if they do, I'll show you exactly what the rest of the draft should look like on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland, Titans fans. Today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On today's show, it is a mock draft Monday. I got a 7-round mock draft for you guys that starts with Cam Ward as the #1 overall pick. I'm going to tell you why the Titans could take Cam Ward #1 overall and exactly what moves I would make after that in the draft. Before we dive into all of it, I do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one. It is a very busy time of year. The Titans are going to have roster decisions to make. They're going to have cap cuts that they need to make. They're going to have free agency right around the corner in a couple of weeks, the draft right around that, and I break it all down in detail to make you the most informed Tennessee Titans fan you could possibly be at this time of year. Again, make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. With that being said, last week we did take a look at my ideal mock draft for the Tennessee Titans, or 2 weeks ago, and we looked at taking Abdul Carter at the top of the draft, but trading down to do it. And of course, I think that would be the most ideal outcome for the Tennessee Titans, is to trade down a couple of spots, get more draft capital, get a first-round pick next year, and get Abdul Carter. But the reality is, those who say, no, the Tennessee Titans need to take a quarterback have a very strong argument as well. I've continued to say throughout the process, I know what my preference is, but if the Tennessee Titans took a quarterback in the NFL draft with the #1 overall pick, I could not blame them. If they fell in love with one of these guys, they got them in meetings, they got them on the board, they figured out exactly who they were as people, not only as a person off the field, but as a leader inside the locker room. And if Cam Ward were to check all those boxes to go along with what he puts on the field, who am I to sit here and say the Tennessee Titans shouldn't do that? I would fully support taking one of these quarterbacks if that's what the Titans want to do. And with that in mind, throughout this process over the next few months, we are going to examine what it would look like if the Tennessee Titans make those decisions, because we don't know exactly what they are going to do, and there's a ton of different routes available. And obviously, one of the top ones is just to stick and pick and take a quarterback. And of course, I think if the Tennessee Titans do that, the pick needs to be Cam Ward. I think Shedeur Sanders is a good prospect and a good player who goes in the first round, but I think with Cam Ward, you get the high-end upside that I think is required when you're taking a quarterback that high in the draft. You get the stronger arm, the bigger arm that can perform in any weather, any time. And I think Sanders can make all the throws, but there are throws outside of the lines that certain guys can make in the NFL, and I think you want that ability. You also get the playmaking to go along with the arm velocity. And I think that if you look at the final 4 quarterbacks in the NFL this year, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts, the one thing that they all have in common is they have that special playmaking ability. And I think that Shedeur Sanders has the ability to do something a little bit outside of structure, but he clearly doesn't have the gifts to be able to create in that way like Cam Ward does, even though Ward isn't a prolific runner or prolific athlete by any means. He definitely has more playmaking upside and creation ability than Shedeur Sanders as a player, and it's something that he displayed in college. I think you could put Cam Ward's mobility, I continue to say it does remind me of Steve McNair, but I think like a Dak Prescott, maybe a Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts maybe has more straight line speed, but neither of those guys are, wiggle runners like you would say that, Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Jaden Daniels are, but they're still very mobile. I think he could be in that class in terms of mobility. So I think Cam Ward gives you more physical tools while also still being able to win from the pocket, still being an accurate quarterback, still being a guy who can get the ball out of his hands and understands that they both need their own development. But I think that Cam Ward makes a ton of sense. And again, if the Titans go number one. Of course, if they fall in love with Shedeur Sanders, they think he's worthy of the number one pick, then absolutely. But I don't think that that's where Shedeur Sanders is going to go. I don't think that the Titans are going to take him number one overall. There's a scenario where they do take Shedeur Sanders. I think if they drop back a little bit and they collect a lot more picks, it could make more sense for him. And I'll discuss that in future mock draft Mondays. That's why you got to get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. But I think that if the Titans take a quarterback number one overall, it's Cam Ward. And that's because you got to bank on the high end upside and the athletic traits and the high end upside of what this player could be at their absolute best. I think you could have a Jalen Hurts level player in Cam Ward that's capable of winning you games in big moments, but also is willing to work within the structure, and that's when you would get the best version of him. And Brian Callahan is supposed to be this quarterback guru and this guy who can get the best out of these quarterbacks. You take the guy with the higher traits who still showed good stuff in terms of the accuracy and the going through progressions and understanding the defense. Like, I'm not trying to downplay Cam Ward's ability to do that stuff by saying that Shedeur Sanders is better at those things. But I just think in that moment, there's a big enough gap in terms of the upside that you got to go with Cam Ward there. And again, if the Titans want to do that, I'm fully on board with that. Do I think that that is the best possible thing that they can do? No, but I'm not behind the scenes in those meetings, getting to know these guys personally and who they are as football players and as people. And that's obviously probably the biggest, the film is one thing, but I mean, Jermaine Burton looked good on film. Isaiah Wilson looked good on the film. You know what I mean? So that's not everything. So with that being said, of course, that creates a lot of decisions for the Titans, because now if you take Cam Ward number one overall out of Miami, you don't have the ability to trade down with the first overall pick. And remember, the Tennessee Titans said, we want to have 12 top 100 picks in the next 3 drafts. Well, you don't have a third round pick this year. You only have 2 this year. And you only have your 3 standard ones in the next 2 drafts. So doing some quick math on that, carry the 2, that's 8. How are you going to get 4 more over the next 3 years? Well, that project starts this year, and that's why I think, regardless of what the Titans do in the first round, they should also consider trading down in the second round, because what do teams like to do? They like to come up and get quarterbacks in the early second round, and the Tennessee Titans should take advantage of that situation with the number 35 overall pick. Again, in the second round, a trade down coming your way, 7-round mock draft, Cam Ward at the top. Let me know what you guys think early on. Very excited to continue diving into all the different options that the Titans will have and where I ultimately think that they should go. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off, you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, doesn't matter. You can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine live bets into a same-game parlay. I love a good same-game parlay. I also love FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3 like Luka Doncic. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Titans fans, let's continue today's Mock Draft Monday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about taking Cam Ward #1 overall to start off this mock draft, but it's time to trade down. Do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. We're going to have Mock Draft Monday every possible week that we can. Free agency's right around the corner. There are probably going to be some cap cuts and roster decisions that the Titans are going to make here soon. You don't want to miss being up to date on any of that information. I keep you up to date every single day, under 30 minutes. Nobody else out there is doing that for you guys. So make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's the number one Tennessee Titans podcast in the world for multiple seasons running now for a reason. But with that being said, a trade down. So you guys know what I like to do. Throughout my career here hosting the show, I've looked at different trade charts and tried to use different pieces of information to make fair trades in mock drafts. But what I've decided a couple of years ago is that the fairest way to look at draft trades is to compare previous draft trades. Look at what teams have actually traded for in the NFL. So I go back to a trade that happened last year between Atlanta and Arizona, where it was pick number 35, which is what the Titans have this year, and pick number 186. So a second-round pick and a sixth-round pick. And it got pick number 43 and pick number 79. I want to do something like that for the Tennessee Titans to go from 2 top 100 picks to 3 top 100 picks. We took quarterback number 1 overall. We couldn't get any extra juice out of that pick. We had to stick and pick the player that we think could turn around our franchise, or at least be good enough to build around. So, with that trade that happened last year in mind, 35 and 186 for 43 and 79, I proposed to the New Orleans Saints pick 35, same pick as the previous one, and pick 141, which is 45 picks higher than 186. So a lot better pick there. 35 and 141 for pick 40, which is 3 picks better than 43, and 71, which is 8 picks better. But you're getting 40 more picks on the back end pick. So to me, that seems like fair value. So we do 35 and 141. And if I had to give up 118 to make it happen, I would do that too, honestly. 35 and 141 for 40 and 71. We drop back 5 picks, and we let the New Orleans Saints come up and draft Jackson Dart at 35 ahead of the Raiders. So there's the logic, the headcanon, you could say. So we move back 5 picks to get a third-round pick and replace the one we gave away for L'Jarius Sneed. Not quite as good as the one we would have had, but pretty close. And now we're at pick number 40. And we're like, look, we got a quarterback. We need to support that quarterback on the offensive side of the ball. This offense needs to be improved. Drafting Cam Ward is telling you we are trying to fix this offense. The defense was pretty good last year. It wasn't great like number 1, number 2 overall defense stats would tell you. The red zone defense could have been better on third downs, things like that. But the defense isn't terrible. So if we go all out on improving the explosive nature of this offense, it could be huge for us. So we add Cam Ward. And with that in mind, at pick 40, I could go offensive tackle. Ariante Ursary is available, who I went with my second-round pick in my previous mock draft. So admittedly, I wanted to change things up from the same exact pick. Cam Williams, the big physical tackle, young tackle out of Texas. Then, what about wide receiver? Jaden Higgins is available. Savion Williams is available. Edge, Landon Jackson. Princely Amum, I'm working on it. Umami Ellen. Bam, Princely Umami Ellen. Knew I'd get there. So edge, wide receiver, offensive tackle. But look, again, what I want to do here is the Titans need more explosion on offense. They're slow. They're plodding. Tony Pollard has some good juice, but he's not a burner. Tajay Spears is, but he's been banged up. Calvin Ridley has great speed, but outside of Tyler Boyd's a 30-year-old slot who wasn't super fast coming out of college anyway. NWI, yes, go to the GPS numbers. He ran this miles per hour. He's not a burner. Let's all use our eyes. Okay? Traylon Burks, you can't count on him. Is Jaquan Jackson going to be able to get real snaps this year? Are we counting on Bryce Oliver to make a big jump? What's going on? The Titans need more explosion. They need playmakers. They need people to put points on the board. They can get the ball in their hands and they can change the game. That's why with pick number 40, I went with Savion Williams, the wide receiver out of TCU, 6'3", over 200 pounds. This guy is great with contested catches, but he has great route running ability, like his ability to sink his hips and get into breaks and play physically throughout he has a great release package at the line of scrimmage to get away from press and things like that. Playmaker, he was used as a wildcat. They would snap the ball to him. He threw for a touchdown. He's a guy who's just a playmaker, and he's huge, 6'3". Again, monstrous size, great yards after catch ability. Get the ball in his hands and let him work. I've seen him compared to Deebo Samuel. I wouldn't say he's quite that big and bulky, but I get it with the versatility and the usage type. I've seen him compared to some people say Brandon Ayuk with his frame and the way that he can break in and out of routes. So now you're talking about a Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel guy who brings both of those sorts of things to the table. I've seen him compared to Cordarrelle Patterson. So comparisons like that make a ton of sense. I saw Laviska Shenault. I hope you guys are getting the idea of the type of player. Now, there's high-end versions, there's low-end versions, there's medium here, but Savion Williams does have some drop issues in his history. His route tree, while showing the ability to run good routes, his route tree hasn't been very diverse at the college level, so you wonder what he can do. But the explosive, the Titans need somebody who could just get the ball in their hands and go crazy. You know what I mean? Calvin Ridley is not quite that guy that he was a couple of, like early in his career in his Atlanta Falcons days. He can still take the top off the defense and get open and do things, but the Titans need somebody who can get the ball, break some tackles, make some guys miss, just make some plays and score some points. And you could throw it out to him. You could run him in the wildcat. You could do creative things with certain players, like just take a chance on some explosive options. And that's what I'm doing with Savion Williams right here with the size and the speed and the playmaking ability that the Titans offense desperately needs a big boost of. And then we go to third round, pick number 71, the pick that I got. And everyone that is thinking about the offensive line is probably screaming at this point, what are we doing? Well, of course, I think the Tennessee Titans are going to attack the offensive line in free agency. I don't think that you can bet on rookies to fix your offensive line. And I think everybody in the building is sick to their stomach and just totally done with having a crap offensive line. So I think if the Titans do make moves in free agency, I would expect two players who could be considered starters at right guard and right tackle, like one at each spot. I don't think the Titans are going to go into the draft needing a rookie to start at one of their spots like they did last year with J.C. Latham. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I don't think the Titans are going to take that risk, especially after the right tackle debacle last year where they didn't address it in free agency because they thought they had enough on the roster. They're not going to play those games. But eventually you do need to take an offensive tackle here. You can't neglect offensive line for too long because most likely one or neither of the guys who you signed are long-term options. So I think the Titans need to get a development tackle in here. And with your fourth top 100 pick that you got after a trade back, you have the luxury of taking a guy who needs a little development. I could have gone with an Ozzie Trapillo out of Boston College, the big, bulky, powerful Anthony Belton, Deion Walker, the interior defensive lineman out of Kentucky. I really like Andrew Makuba, the safety out of Texas, but ultimately I went with Charles Grant, the development offensive tackle out of William and Mary, 6'4", 300 pounds, 35.6-inch arms. So he's got the length that the Tennessee Titans want on the end now. 300 pounds is light. He needs to add some weight. I'm sure he's already trying to do that, but his athletic talent and ability to move, he plays with a nasty streak. He needs to add weight. He needs to add anchor, but he's got really good hands and he's got just elite movement ability. And with his length and his nasty streak, if you were to clean up his technique and add some weight and strength on him, I think you could have a really, really good tackle. So I think at this stage, with their fourth top 100 pick, you take a shot on an offensive tackle with high-end upside who has some development that he needs ahead of him. And I think because you sign two veterans in free agency that you expect to start, you have the ability to, with your fourth top 100 pick, take a guy who maybe needs a little bit of development, but could be ready to be a long-term starter for you and a good starter for you next year. And when injuries hit, gives you depth as well. So some offensive explosion on day two. explosive young offensive tackle that needs development, explosive wide receiver that needs development. Again, the Titans aren't a win right now team, so get some of these young, explosive guys to pair with Cam Ward to build this team over the next few years. We'll move to day 3 of the NFL draft right now. Titans fans, let's cap off today's Mock Draft Monday edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about picking Cam Ward number 1 overall. We talked about trading down in the second round to get an additional top 100 pick. We hit an explosive wide receiver. We hit an explosive offensive tackle. And now we move to pick 101. 4th round. Look, it's not a top 100 pick. I know earlier I said 4 top 100 picks. It's 101. Okay. All right. Fine. 3 top 100 picks and then 101. Fair enough. Whatever. But either way, I think we hit the Titans' other biggest need here with our 4th top 100 pick. And I went with Charles Grant at offensive tackle as a development guy, knowing that there were a lot of good edge rushers in this class. Everybody is talking about how deep this edge rusher class is. And look, I have preferred going with Abdul Carter. But since the Titans do not go Abdul Carter in this mock draft, they go with quarterback at number 1. We still have to add edge at some point in time in these top 4 picks that the Tennessee Titans get. And I considered it at previous spots. I really did. But ultimately, you get here, and because of the depth at edge rusher, you can get a guy who's ready to play right away in certain packages with the 101 pick at edge because the edge class is so deep. You know what I mean? I had options here, but I went with Braden Swinson, the edge out of LSU, transferred from Oregon, I do believe. 6'3", 250 pounds. All right, been in college 5 years. So he's ready to play right away, man body, grown up, come in, contribute right away. And whereas last year, Jalen Harrell wasn't a guy who had a ton of pass rush move repertoire. He was a speed to power guy, effort rusher, come in, play special teams. You look at Swinson, he's got a variety of pass rush moves. He really does have multiple things that he can go to and he can win with. He has an explosive first step off the line of scrimmage. He is a guy who, I know I say that a lot, but doesn't have elite measurables across the board, like arm length, height, weight. His testing numbers, we'll see. But the broad jump is expected to be good. And that proves the explosive first step off the line of scrimmage that you see when you watch him play. Not only does he have pass rush moves, but he's got a great speed power combo, change of direction. Now, he's a little bit lighter at only 250 pounds, 6'3". He needs to put some weight on and be a better run defender on the edge. No doubt about it. But in the 4th round, where you need pass rush help, he's a guy who can come in right away. And because of his pass rush repertoire, he should be able to come in and be contributing into a rush package right away. So you have Harold Landry. You can move Arden Key on the inside next to Jeffrey Simmons and have Swinson rushing off the edge. That's a pretty good rush package for you on 3rd and long situations. So hit quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle, edge. 2 guys who can contribute right away in Cam Ward and Braden Swinson, or they could sit Cam Ward for a year with a veteran or do the pass off in midseason. I'm fine with either of those options. And some explosiveness. Really happy with our top 4 picks here, hitting all of the big needs that the Titans have. But we move to the Titans' next pick. Another 4th round pick here, pick 118. And it's time to show some love on defense, okay? We got edge. Now it's time to hit the front 7 again with linebacker. I went with Barrett Carter, linebacker out of Clemson. 6'1", 230 pounds. He's a violent player. He's a versatile guy. He could just He got moved to stack linebacker or started doing more stack linebacker stuff later in his career. He added some weight. He was like a slot nickel kind of guy / linebacker, passing down option. He's a guy who's blitzed and lined up on the line of scrimmage, so there's versatility in his alignment, which works for what the Titans do on defense. And I want the Titans to continuously cycle through these mid-round linebackers. If Cedric Gray and James Williams aren't going to work out, we're not going to wait to find out that they didn't work out. We need a mid-round linebacker to play right now, right away. So we're going to bring in Barrett Carter. Again, violent, versatile, explosive, get downhill. He shows the ability to play in coverage. It wasn't a strong suit for him, but he shows the ability and understanding to be able to do it and to grow into that type of player. I think he would make a ton of sense, and I think he fits the profile of what the Tennessee Titans are looking for. And with my opinion that the Titans need to cut Kenneth Murray and save $7 million this offseason, if they don't go out and spend at linebacker, which I don't really want them to do, other than maybe another veteran level, so you have one veteran linebacker in there, let's keep drafting these linebackers on day 3 of the NFL draft and see if one hits. Look at what Kansas City did with, Willie Gay and Leo Chenal and Nick Bolton. Like, they just cycled through these mid-round linebackers all the time. That's what the Titans should be doing. So I go with Barrett Carter out of Clemson. We moved to round 5, pick number 167. The Titans have a big 50-pick gap here after getting 5 players in the top 120, which is what they're hoping to do here. And I go back to the offensive line because even if the Titans sign a Trey Smith or they, bring back Dylan Radins or whatever, they need to draft an interior offensive lineman that they can continue to develop. So, and depth, injuries, it's about building the best roster that you possibly can. So I'm going to go back to the offensive line one. I'm going to go to the interior offensive line. I'm going to go with Emory Jones out of LSU. Now, Emory Jones was a tackle. He was a high-level recruit coming into high school, goes to LSU, coming out of LSU. He was an offensive tackle, right tackle for LSU. He's going to kick inside at the NFL level, but he's a big guard, 6'4", 312 pounds, only 21 years old, just turned 21 recently. He's a real raw athlete. He's got good size, good power, shows the ability to work with good hands. He's just raw. He needs development. He needs technique with his feet to be consistent, not fall off blocks. Like, he just needs some tutelage to really hone in his talent. And I'll take a chance on a guy like that late. It's pick 167. You might have a starter down the road and have some depth right away. I'm taking him over Andrew Rupsich. You know what I mean? And he can compete with Daniel Brunskill. He's going to be a way more powerful and physical player than 30-year-old Daniel Brunskill at 21 years old. So that's what the Titans need. They need more youth, explosion, power. Like that, they need to get younger and have some more power on the roster. Pick number 177. So 10 picks later, we get a 6th-round pick here. I'm going to keep doing it. This is a pick that's going to get boring to you guys. I don't care. I'm taking Ollie Gordon, running back out of Oklahoma State. The Titans need a power running back. I don't want Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears fighting over, 1 yard goal line. Get a big power back who can run with strength. Also, Tony Pollard started breaking down at the end of the year last year, and he's going to be a year older this year. If the Titans give Tony Pollard anywhere near the amount of touches that he got last year, he is going to get injured this year. He cannot play a bell cow back role, and Tajay Spears was hurt too much last year to be trusted. The Titans, like with linebacker, they need to continue rolling through these mid-round running backs because you never know who might pop, and you might get a Bucky Irving or something like that. But also, these guys wear down. The whole point of this is to continue cycling through them. Tony Pollard, this might be his last year with the Titans. That's just how running back works. So get a guy, and then maybe next year it's Tajay Spears and Ollie Gordon if Ollie Gordon pops. And if not, you draft a guy next year as well, and you just keep it rolling here. Late 177, I'm taking Ollie Gordon, a productive running back out of college who balances out the skill set that you already have in the room. And then finally, last pick, almost 70 picks later, pick 240, pick number 240, 7th round. I went with safety. The Titans needed to add a safety. I want to add safety earlier, but it just didn't fall to me the way the draft did, and that might be the way that it happens for the Titans. But it's a decent safety class. You could probably get a decent safety here, but I'm just going to get a special teams ad with Jordan Hancock, the safety out of Ohio State, 6'1", 195 pounds, only 21 and a half years old. So you get some young upside, expect to be a special teams contributor right away. Comes from a good program in Ohio State where if you don't play special teams early in your career, you're not going to see the field. Like, I know it sounds crazy with the high level recruits they have, but that's really how it works at Ohio State. So here late, we get a guy from Clemson. We get a guy from LSU. We get a guy from Oklahoma State. We get a guy from Ohio State. High-level programs that played high-level football against high-level competition. And that's exactly what Brian Callahan said last year when he got hired, that he wants to build his culture around his guys who come from programs like this that played in high-leverage games at the highest levels of college football because they're prepared for the grind of the NFL and the high-level nature of the sport. So, Cam Ward, number 1 overall. We trade down in the second round. We get Savion Williams, the wide receiver out of TCU. Then we go into the third round, and we get offensive tackle out of William Mary, Charles Grant. We get Braden Swinson off the edge from LSU in the fourth round, and we finish up with Barrett Carter, Emory Jones, Ollie Gordon, and Jordan Hancock. Let me know how you would grade that 7-round mock draft. F all the way to A+. Expect to see a lot of A+s out there. But that's going to do it for me today. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.